Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and yes, I still have a cold, and I'm dressed in the same clothes as last time because I wanted to get all of these videos out before the new year. So, the last couple of days, I've been putting out videos on my top 5 most disappointing reads of 2019, or the worst, or the most surprising, and of course, I had to end it with the great video that I wanted to do for so long, and that is the top 5 best books that I read this year. Now, this list is fairly varied. I tried to pick books over the course of the whole year, but some of them I just naturally gravitated towards, so let's jump right in. So first up is The Price of Valor by Django Wexler. I actually intended to read this in 2018 because I wanted to read the whole series very quickly, only I started reading it and then I got to a point where one character was in danger and I was genuinely unsure that they were going to survive, and I'm like, I don't think I can handle this right now, so I put it down and walked away. And I kept walking away because I wasn't really prepared. And then the sequelathon happened, which was all about finishing series or continuing on with series. So I was like, fine, let's do this. And I read this. It's very hard to explain this one because it is the third in a series. It is a flintlock fantasy series based on the Napoleonic Wars, wherein there are these creatures that are demons or just entities, depending on who you ask, that kind of envelop people, and it's a lot of political machinations. This is the one I think is my favorite of the entire series. Definitely my favorite of the series that I read in 2019. I read a few of them the year before that, and I just loved our protagonist. She is the war queer that I want to be. Winter Earring Glass is one of my favorite protagonists of all time. You had new characters coming into their own. You had one ending scene that destroyed me and I had to yell at the author because of it, but this was the one book where I felt gripped by everything to the extent that I really wanted to put it down, but then I forced myself to read it for sequelathon and I managed to get through it and I loved it. And yeah, this might, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is tied with the second one. I'm not sure, but I'm really glad, and this is definitely on the top 10 best reads for this year. Up next is a book I read fairly recently, and that is Unknown Horizons by Casey White. I reviewed this not too long ago after seeing the premise on a Discord server that I was on with the author, and I said, hey, you want to give a review copy, let me know. I adore space operas. This is all about a young woman who was kidnapped from her home by aliens and has been kept as their prisoner for she doesn't even know how long, and has survived by playing dumb, basically making them look like humans are pointless. You don't want to come colonize us. Look at us, we're worthless. And it works almost too well because one day she finds out that her time is limited, and so she decides that she has no other way to escape other than a complete jailbreak. And the jailbreak scene was chef's kiss fantastic. There is explosions and one moment that like wrecked me, and again I had to message the author to be like, how dare you. And in general, there was a lot of cool sci-fi concepts that I haven't seen before. A battle with an AI that was fantastic. Our protagonist has certain abilities, especially having to do with ships, that I adored. There was a nice found family. The aliens felt like aliens. They were just different colored people. And I don't mean like their cast wasn't diverse. I mean like they weren't like blue people. Like it was actually like, this guy looks like a giant bug. This guy looks like a psychotic, very dense toddler that with the sailor's mouth. Like, it was so varied in beings that it actually felt like real aliens. So again, it's not the best book if you know, want to get into sci-fi. If you haven't before, it's definitely a sci-fi book. But I just looked at this cover, I got Mass Effect vibes, I jumped in, there are in fact Mass Effect vibes. So I highly suggest it if you love space operas as much as I do. I will put the review down below if you want to get an even more in-depth where I talk about that psycho toddler dude. He's not actually a toddler, he just looks like one. So check that one out because this one is definitely one of my favorites. Up next was a book I read this year, actually because of my work. I work at an elementary school, and this was a book that one of the 5th grade classes or maybe even all of the 5th grade classes were reading, and the premise sounded so intriguing to me that I had to check it out in my local library. And that is Restart by Gordon Corman. This is a mid-grade, upper mid-grade contemporary novel all about a boy who wakes up in the hospital after falling off of his roof, and he remembers nothing. Now, what I really loved about this is it's not about, oh no, who is he? It's not about him being lied to and mysteries. No, the amnesia in this case is actually more like him seeing his own life from a stranger's point of view. Because once he goes back to school, he finds out he was the school bully. And he bullied one kid so badly that kid had to leave the school. And it's basically about what do you do when you realize you're the villain. And I loved this take. I love this boy figuring out that the ultra cool jock that he wasn't a good person, and his old friends want him to go back to being that, go back to being on the football team and, you know, pushing around the dorks or whatever. And it's him actively fighting against that old life and realizing he needed to make changes and making the steps to make those changes even when people don't really believe he's changed, which I really loved that aspect. How it wasn't like, oh, he has amnesia, he's a good guy now. No. You see the sister of the boy he bullied out of the school, and she still hates him, and everyone else is still very uneasy and unsure about him, and he has to do good works and show that he is reformed over and over and over again to prove, but he's always worried in the back of his mind, what if he goes back? And of course, the other bigger mystery is, what was he doing on the roof in the first place? And the reveal of that was fantastic. I loved it. This book, oh, it gripped me. I read it in a day. I mean, fortunately, it was a snow day, but I read it in a day, and I see why they have other kids at the school read it. From what I have heard from the other teachers that have their kids read more Gordon Corman, he is a fantastic author. He does a lot of that type of thing where his books look like boy books and have, like, you know, 12-year-old boys that play video games as protagonists, but the stories always revolve around them realizing that the way they think they should be as a 12-year-old boy isn't necessarily the kindest way, and that they should be more focused on things than, you know, making fun of their siblings and stuff. And I love that kind of emphasis, you know, marketing books to the guys that need that message the most. So I'm definitely going to be reading more of Gordon Corman in the future. I have another of his books, and I'm looking into some others that look really cool, but this one kept popping up in my head constantly. It was just a fantastic story. Up next was another review book, and that is Paper Flowers by Andy Barr. I discovered over the course of many years of reading that I like slow burn romances. Insta-love, don't want it, make me work for it, make me wait, and this is perfect. This is a queer romance, two men who meet at Jake's florist shop. Max has to go and help his sister plan her wedding, and he's in charge of the flowers, and wouldn't you know it, the guy on the other side of the counter is really cute, and they start dating. And a lot of this is not them realizing that they should start dating. They actually start dating fairly early on. It's them dealing with baggage and things that they've brought into the relationship that they have to overcome and move past. Max and Jake are adorable as a couple. I love the family dynamic. Max's siblings are all there and really supportive. There is some discussion on homophobia, but thankfully it was much, much more of a subtext, and characters that were homophobic were kicked out of the story real quick, and it was much more focused on the relationship and the mistakes one of them might have made that needed to be addressed in some very big ways. This is the one book that I got the ebook version of, that I really have thought to myself, maybe I should go get the physical copy because I would love to own this in physical. It's one of my favorite romances. Again, it's like slow burn, not in them getting together, but in them figuring it out. And it's really long. I think it's is it 500 pages? It might be. So if you like queer, slow burn romances where the point of the story is not them getting together, but them figuring out how to be together after they're together, it's very gratifying. I would highly, highly suggest it. And no quick burn romances will ever satisfy me again. Last up, there's a bit of poetry, and including this one as my top pick. And no, the other ones weren't ranked, but this one is. And my number one pick for best read of the year has to be Starmark Rising by Shami Stovall. I have a very, nostalgic sense for this book, which is weird because it's been literally less than a calendar year since I read this. I read this and reviewed it in late January of this year. And this is the first indie book I ever reviewed on my channel. This is all about a man living on a space station who is he a cyborg? Or no, he's a genetically modified human. And he's lived all of his life on this decrepit space station, and he wants to get planet-side. It's his big thing. He wants to live on solid ground. So when this ship captain offers him the opportunity to come work for her and get a plot of land planet-side, he jumps at it. But what he has to be willing to do to get that plot of land might be more than he's willing to. I love this story. Our main character is a bicon. We have a WLW romance. We have a lot of disability rep. There's a lot of focus on, because humanity in the years before this worked so hard to create perfect humans along the way, they also created a lot of genetic mistakes. Essentially, all the messing with genetics has left a lot of glitches in the system, more or less. So a lot of diseases and conditions are left over, and those that have them are seen as lesser. And it's a very poignant talk about disability and how people will view those disabilities as a lesser, and what to do when you're faced with that and how to get around that. And the found family was there. The ending had a twist that I low-key saw coming, but I couldn't believe it would fully happen. And there was an explosion, and I loved it. And I am dying for this sequel. And Shami Stovall became my favorite author. She currently has 5 published books. I have read 3 of them. The 3 I read were all for review, but I probably will end up buying and reading the other ones on my own time just because. I love this book. I love what this book started for me, and getting to read and review so many indie titles, and how it took my channel in ways that I hadn't anticipated. And so yeah, some of this might be sentimentality on my part to make this my number one pick, but I could not think of a better book to fit this slot. And I am so excited to jump into 2020 reviewing even more indie books, and hopefully, hint hint, Shami, the sequel to this one, which currently reigns as my most anticipated. So whenever you want to send that to me, you just let me know. And that is it. My top 5 reads of 2019. This has been a fantastic year. I have not yet hit 150 books as of filming this, but I'm really hoping I have by the time you're seeing this, because I am just so close. If I don't get there, I'm going to be so annoyed at myself. Regardless, if you've had any fantastic reads that stand out from the year, please let me know down in the comments below. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.